There are hectic parleys going on in India's political corridors with the race to Rashtrapati Bhavan heating up. The elections for the next president of India will be held on the 18th of July and opposition parties are gearing up to put forward a consensus candidate and display unity. TMC chief and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee called for a meeting of opposition parties today. 17 parties turned up. At least 5, including the Aam Aadmi Party, TRS, BJD, Shiromani Akali Dal, YSRCP, did not. Meanwhile, senior BJP leader and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has also been reaching out to a host of non-BJP and non-NDA leaders, including, as per reports, Mamata Banerjee and Sharad Pawar. Neither side has declared who their candidate is, but reports suggest that the BJP could be working on the possibility of a consensus candidate. Will both sides of the political divide agree on a name right now when there is so much of strife between the two sides? It seems unclear and quite unlikely. Now, here is what top opposition leaders said at the end of the meet today.
Sharad Pawarji briefed you. That is the gist of the discussion.
Is that there will be a joint opposition candidate. Everybody is also in consensus that it should be Sharad Pawarji. Sharad Pawarji has actually said that he doesn't want to give up his political.
He was not keen, ma'am. We have seen.
Not keen because he doesn't want to give up the political space right now. Where he says that we will talk about it jointly.
All we have decided there will be only one consensus candidate. Though I personally, even all the members of the meeting, they unanimously suggested Sharad Pawar's name. If Sharad Pawar is agreed, is okay, but he said he is not interested. When he is not, if he is agreed, everybody will give him support. And if not, the name should be come from the political parties. They will consult Sharadji, consult with others, and then it will be decided.
So who are the probable candidates for India's next president? So far, it's only clear who is not. As you heard from what all of those leaders said, NCP chief Sharad Pawar has made it clear that he did not want to be in the race despite several parties in the opposition reaching out to him. Some of the names, though, that are doing the rounds include Arif Mohammad Khan. He is the current governor of Kerala. Draupadi Murmu, tribal leader from Odisha and first woman governor of Jharkhand, is also one of the names that is doing the rounds right now. Remember, these are all in the realm of speculation because nothing has been announced so far. Tamil Sai Soundarajan, Telangana governor, and Puducherry LG is also on the list reportedly. On the opposition list is Farooq Abdullah, NC chief, and Gopal Krishna Gandhi, former Bengal governor and grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. Those are some of the names that the TMC spoke about today. So what is this election all about? That's important as well, because we've been talking about the politics around it, but how does it all happen? In all, there will be 4,809 electors. MPs of both houses are included in this list. So what makes up this electoral college? It will be MPs of both houses. It will be MLAs of all states and union territories. The exception to this is nominated members. The way the votes are counted is also quite interesting. So these are all the people who will actually be in the list. That makes up that 4,809 number I was talking about. Let's tell you how the votes are counted. It's not one member, one vote. MLA votes will be weighed as per the population of the state they represent, so that the lesser the population, the lesser the count. So, for example, MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh will have a higher number assigned to their vote because it is a larger population state, and so on and so forth. Similarly, for MPs, they have to equal in number to the votes by the MLAs. So in the end of it, there will be about 10.8 lakh votes in the frame. As of now, the BJP and allies have about 48% of the vote and need more support to cross the halfway mark. This is perhaps why the opposition has also seen an opportunity to present a united front. So the big question here, can the BJP count on the BJT, YSRCP, JDU, Akali Dal and others? The opposition sees this as a chance to form a united front, but can they do that with the fissures already beginning to show? Is this meeting also a test of opposition unity? And one important point, remember, this was a meet called by TMC chief Mamata Banerjee. Does it point to the TMC's growing role within that opposition space? Will the choice of president be used to send a larger social message? We're talking on some of these issues. And to speak on this, I'm joined today by Dr. Rajdeep Roy, BJP MP in the Lok Sabha from Guwahati. Saket Gokhale, TMC spokesperson, is with us on the show. And I'm also speaking with Vamsi Juluru. He's a professor of media studies at the University of San Francisco. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Headline, a show where we hope to bring context and clarity to our viewers on the big story of the day. Saket, great to have you on the show. Tell us what is hoped to be achieved, because since the BJP plus already has about 48%, 49% of the vote, it's quite likely that they will easily cross the halfway mark. Is this more of a symbolic sort of fight to display and test opposition unity?
Hi, Tamanna. Thanks for having me over. To be honest, you can't really, the BJP does not really have the majority mark yet. So it would be too early to conclude as to, the BJP, the BJP by itself does not have the numbers. The NDA, the alliance, as you see over the last few years, has been bleeding. You had, Shiromani Akali Dal quitting and the Shiv Sena leaving the NDA as well. So no, it's not symbolic. This is, in a sense, yes, the bigger, greater message here is that the opposition has to get united. We have, in a sense, we're all parties that are opposed to the way the BJP is ruling the country right now, the way the Modi government is running their so-called bulldozer politics in the country with the constitution. So all opposition parties are on the same page about the fact that the BJP needs to be defeated, and that can only be happening with a joint opposition. And therefore, this is just one of the steps in, a lot of larger alliances that get built up over the next couple of years, where, we are putting up a candidate to ensure that we have a president in the Rashtrapati Bhavan who will follow the constitution and not just be a, rubber stamp acting completely on directions of the ruling party without challenging.
So, Saket, if that is the purpose, then isn't it worrisome that some prominent opposition parties chose not to turn up today?
Look, first of all, the meeting was convened at a very last minute notice. Mamta Di just wrote the letters about a week or 10 days ago. So there's a lot of parties which, for reasons of could be paucity of time, could be scheduling. There are other parties that have also said, they've given a statement and they said their reasons for being there or not being. One of the parties, the TRS, for example, has clearly indicated that they are together with the opposition. They expressed their reservations on, the equations with another party, but they have clarified today, the spokesperson and also Krishank today has clarified that they're on board with the opposition. Going forward, as was decided today, if Mr. Pawar declines and chooses not to contest the election, then the decision will be made unanimously by all parties, and the parties that were present today, they will also be consulting the parties that were not present today. So they will also be brought on board. And the decision is that no matter what happens, the opposition candidate is going to be a unanimous candidate.
Okay. Rajdeep Roy, from the BJP's perspective, there were reports later in the evening that suggested that Mr. Rajnath Singh was reaching out to various parties in the opposition, including Mamata Banerjee, Sharad Pawar. What's the plan here? Is the plan or the hope to find a candidate that everyone can agree on? Is that even likely, considering the pitched political battles going on right now between the two sides?
Look, good evening to you and all your viewers. And I've been hearing to the arguments put forward by my learned opposition friend. But here I would like to answer your question straight by hammering the nail on the head and all. Obviously, our first target is to put everybody on the same table, same plan. President of India, as we have always seen, is that a consensus needs to evolve. the onus especially is on the ruling party, obviously, and my party obviously is trying to have a consensus on this issue and all. Let's see, but Mamta Didi has already called for a meeting of the opposition party, excluding the BJP, and however my friend from the opposition says that they have given clarification, but the reports are out that we are all unanimous, an opposition unanimous effort, but minus the Congress. So the line is very clearly drawn within the opposition party. It is either all opposition together minus the Congress, or all opposition if they are together. I am not sure what the alliance will look like. But to answer your question straight away, yes, sir, let me speak. I did not interrupt you.
Yeah,
Mr.
go
Saket,
on. 1 minute.
please,
Go
let's
on.
have a sensible debate.
Go on.
You are an educated
1
man,
minute.
so am I.
Dr. Roy.
Let's have it. Let's have it. Yeah.
He's waiting.
So
He's
what
waiting.
I
but come to the point, sir. My point is,
no,
let me reiterate my question and hope for a shorter, more succinct answer. My question simply is that do you think there is space for any kind of consensus looking at the fact that the BJP and the opposition are fighting right now on every arena, whether it is on the use of agencies like the ED, whether it is on bulldozer politics, on every stage, in the courts, there is a fight going on. Do you think there is space for a consensus?
That is the beauty of democracy. For us, there is always a space for consensus. We are trying hard on it. Our minister has actually, senior minister, he has reached out to the opposition as per reports in the media. Let's see what's the, evolving issues are. If there are any concerns for any of them, be it Sharad Pawar or Mamata Banerjee, let them spell it out. If they spell it out, obviously we'll take their, issues into consideration and we'll proceed further as far as the things evolve at a later stage. Days are numbered. That's also one important thing that needs to be. Whatever is there, one last point, whatever is there in the media, obviously from our side, definitely you will see an effort from the ruling dispensation to reach out to the opposition. And of course, there is a position of consensus, but it all depends on how they react to it. If they close one of the window of the house, that will not talk to BJP. In that case, they will be paid in equal, terms as far as the
Saket
BJP is
Gokhale,
also
just
concerned.
your response on 2 points. One, that if the BJP does want to reach out, is there a ground for consensus with the BJP on a candidate that everyone agrees on? And this point that Dr. Roy is making of the Congress not being acceptable to some opposition members. You referred to it earlier in your first response as well.
Look, Dr. Roy probably did not. I don't know if he caught the news this evening, but the Congress party was present at the opposition meeting. And let me jog back the memory of the Honorable MP a little bit. For 10 years, the United Progressive Alliance government ran together with a coalition of parties. A lot of them might not have been on the same page with many issues. Today, in a state like Maharashtra, the Congress, NCP and Shiv Sena running a government together. So the bottom line is parties do have their issues. That does not mean that opposition parties cannot come up with a common minimum program and say, you know what, these are the areas where we found common ground and we can get together. So who is with us, whether the Congress is part of it or not, who's in the opposition, I think that's a problem that the BJP should not worry about. They should leave that to us. Second thing, as far as consensus goes, it's very nice and it's very flowery to hear talking about, it's the constitutional position of the President of India, this and that. We have seen what the BJP has done with governors in state. I mean, that's also a constitutional position. But you've put up people over there who act as, party agents of the BJP. Even as far as the president goes, if the BJP really respected the chair of the president, we saw what happened in Maharashtra in 2019, where the president had to sign a document at 2 o'clock in the night, suddenly revoking president's rule, and Devendra Fadnavis went to do a swearing in secretly in the morning. So the BJP, it's really, for their own sake, they should not talk about constitutional propriety or the office of the president or any constitutional office, because there is not a single constitutional office that this party has not abused in the last 8 years.
Okay, 1 second. So let me come to the question of why this particular election has become so important and so significant. I will give you an opportunity, Dr. Roy, to respond, but I want to bring in Professor Jalluri as well, who I've invited on the panel. And Professor Jalluri, what really caught my eye was a piece that you wrote today where you made an interesting suggestion. And I'm assuming this was also a message that you were trying to give there, because it's not really possible as per our framework. You were saying, why not get the Dalai Lama to be the president. What was the point you were trying to make?
Well, the main point, and I'll begin with that point now, can be made only in silence. And I would like your viewers to just consider the silence in this image for a second. I know even a second of silence on national television is a disorienting thing, but I think what we need is silence, peace, and genuine connection with each other. And that is what is lacking. And I think that was the point I was trying to make, Tamanna. And I'm so grateful to you and to your colleagues for inviting me, because you brought back, first of all, a memory of the only time I saw His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. It was in Berkeley, California, about 12 or 15 years ago. The traffic had been stopped. I was in my car, and his convoy was going. And my former student and I, who's a very spiritual young man, we were looking at that car. We just saw him. And that memory still remains. And I don't know why 2 days ago, I just thought, as wild as this idea sounds, considering all the constitutional limitations, etc., we have to consider the idea of the Dalai Lama or someone like him representing us in a framework that's outside the colonial legacies of our political systems. And the way that colonial legacy is playing out is every day, every minute, in arguments, in acrimony, in antagonism, like this. I'm sure, all the panelists we have, all the politicians we have, they get into this out of a sense of service, out of a sense of community and belonging. But inevitably, because of the nature of the media systems we are in today, which is not only, television, but also social media, we're all at our worst selves on social media. And I think somebody like the Dalai Lama can help us rethink what it means to communicate, what it means to be human, and what it means to participate in society.
Professor Jaluri, are you not placing too much weight on the shoulders of whoever will be the next president? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a constitutional authority, but the executive action and remit of this role is extremely limited. That's why the fight for the candidate is now a symbolic one and a largely political one for a larger point. It's not as if whoever makes it to Rashtrapati Bhavan is going to move the needle politically this way or that.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. The real politic, I will leave to the real politicians. But I think we need a greater imagination. We've had moments like that before when people try to, combine spirituality and politics in our country. And we need that again. And I think we need to really think outside the box. As my friend, the filmmaker Radha Bharadwaj has once said, the legacy of colonialism is that when the slave whips himself even after the master has gone, that is, colonialism. And sometimes when I see all our anger within the limitations of our, colonial constitutional legacies, that's what it feels like. We're unnecessarily subjecting ourselves to so much pain when we could, for once at a time, when we really need to get beyond polarization, imagine how we could bring in somebody who is, technically maybe not even eligible, but then we figure out how to do it.
I take your point, Professor Jaluri, and this is why I wanted to introduce this point into the conversation. Saket Gokhale, you made a comment earlier that we should have a president who will uphold the Constitution. And I reiterate the question. There are limitations to what the president can or will actually do. At the end of the day, it is a constitutional figurehead kind of an authority. So what really are you hoping politically to get from this, apart from testing out the grounds of opposition unity?
No, thanks. I would like to respond to also Professor Jaluri's point, which is, I understand where you're coming from, in terms of, the mixing of the spiritual and the political realm. But unfortunately, let me tell you that today we have a state with a monk as the chief minister who's going around bulldozing people's houses without even following due process. So I don't know if that mixing of spiritual and political is always a good thing, really. Coming to your point, Tamanna, about what is expected of the president, it's basic. I mean, if you've looked over the years, if you looked at presidents right from, say, someone like a Mr. K.R. Narayanan or even an APJ Abdul Kalam or Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, the president is a person in their own right. And today what we are seeing, the perception that is given out is that See, the Constitution says that the President is supposed to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers. That does not mean the President is subservient to the Council of Ministers. But today what we are seeing in a sense is that the Prime Minister has become so bigger than anybody, any other political figure, any constitutional figure in the country, that it seems that, the Prime Minister really is the one who supposedly thinks of himself as the head of state, and the President's been reduced to a titular term. We often say that the President is a ceremonial role, but it is not. I mean, we have seen in the past where presidents have signed orders, unfortunate things like, invoking the emergency, for instance, but also things like clemency petitions. There is also things like bills that go to the president. We've had presidents in the past that have also refused to sign bills or have sent bills back that they did not agree with. Whereas today we see things like, contentious bills are passed in the parliament on a voice vote without even having a division vote. They go to the president and immediately in a span of 5 hours, the president has signed the bill. So the question is the president exercising the power that he or she or they have to read that bill in entirety, and if they feel that there is a problem, send it back to the parliament for reconsideration. They do have the power of veto. So it's not an entirely powerless position as we make it out to be. Sure, the powers are limited, but that's the reason we need an independent president, a president who will not toe the line of the ruling party, a person who genuinely will be the head of state of India and not the head of the BJP.
Dr. Roy, I want you to come in on some of the points that Professor Jalluri also made. The requirement of a person in the Rashtrapati Bhavan right now who is larger than life in a sense, and everyone can agree and look up to, no matter where that name comes from.
Look, Professor Jalluri has suggested the name of Dalai Lama. I have serious doubt about the issues of his citizenship, which needs to be looked at.
Yes, of course.
That is something, obviously, which will be considered. Let me finish. I do not want to get into a discussion which is basically speculation, raise the TRP, and then, ultimately say some BJP MP has suggested the name of so-and-so to be the President of India. So, to answer your question straight away, but I need to answer a few of the issues raised by Mr. Saket. The party which destroyed the constitution of our country for the last 75 years has been a Congress party, from emergency to multiple imposition of, please let me speak uninterrupted, from emergency to imposition of Article 356 on a multiple number of times. Against that, if you see 6 years of Atalji and 8 years of Modiji, you have not seen a single incidence of Article 356 being imposed on any other state. As far as Monk and a chief minister is concerned, the snide remark is very, very uncalled for, because Mr. Adityanath Yogiji is doing his administrative work in such a stupendous way that not only the people of Uttar Pradesh are benefited, but the entire country is talking of Yogiji in a very positive manner. As far as Modi ji and his larger than life character is concerned, you have to go back to the rating of the Prime Minister. Modi ji still enjoys 70% plus popularity even after being 8 years in the Prime Minister's chair. So the people who actually point fingers at Adityanath ji or Modi ji need to look into their performance or what they have done exactly for the last 75 years. The country is progressing on a world platform, externally as well as internally. The indicators of development are shooting up. Not on a day-to-day basis, but it is doing fantastically well. It is like people like Mr. Saket who sleep with their eyes open during the daytime and do not look at the progress that the country is making on a daily basis on each and every front, from economy.
All right, I was hoping to avoid. Okay, I was hoping to avoid the 1 minute. Okay, Dr. Roy, I think you've got time uninterrupted. I don't think you've got so much uninterrupted time on any debate anywhere. So 1 minute. 1 minute. Dr. Roy, I think you had your say.
I did not interrupt.
No, you had your say, and I think so much uninterrupted time is unlikely on any channel. You will agree. That's what we hope to do here. Since you made a personal comment on Saket Gokhale, I'll let him respond. But I urge you, gentlemen, let's talk about something that matters to people. instead of all this finger pointing. It's an opportunity we have to actually
no personal
educate.
comment on anybody.
Okay, yes, Saket Gokhale, quick response, and then we'll move on.
Dr. Roy, please, I don't think Dr. Roy has to worry about whether I sleep with my eyes open or with my eyes closed. But as far as Prime Minister Modi's 70% approval rating country is going so well, sir, sorry, this
You are
is
not
what
looking at facts. That's what I meant and all. The
One
English
by
means that
one,
you are
one by
not
one.
looking at
Dr.
facts.
Roy, one by
That's
one.
it.
He listened to you, one by one.
It's not WhatsApp.
And as far as...
Again, I will repeat the same
No,
thing.
no, don't repeat it. You've already said it. 1 minute, one by one.
As far as Modi ji's popularity goes, let me tell you, you're talking about 75 years. My party is not that old. But I can definitely tell you 1 year ago in West Bengal, we saw the level of popularity of Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah. So please don't tell me what is the popularity of Mr.
Okay,
Modi.
that's not
They
what we're talking about. 1 minute, time out, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about why this election matters, why the choice of next president matters. You know what the problem is? What the problem is, Dr. Roy Saket, that this kind of acrimony has become par for the course for everything, and it's leaking into an election for the next president as well. It's leaking into the election for the next president as well.
No, there is disagreement, and then there is locking up people under sedition charges, sending ED to people's house. That's a different kind of acrimony. We are not doing any of that. All we are trying to do is make sure the voice of, it's not the Prime Minister Modi or BJP don't represent 100%. People have also voted for the opposition parties.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that while 38% might have voted for you, there is about 62% that did not vote for you. And
Okay,
their voice also.
last point to Professor Juluri. Last point to Professor Juluri. We will close. We will close. We will close with the voice which is on neither side. Professor Juluri, I'm assuming you're on neither side over here. 1 minute, Dr. Roy, come down. We're done with this, with that bit. But I will give Professor Juluri the closing comments you talked about, and obviously you know that your suggestion is untenable because it's not in the constitutional framework. The candidate has to be a citizen of this country. But I get the point that you're trying to make. Do you think there is a possibility of using this opportunity of candidature, for the next president to send a larger message? And it's been done before. Dr. Ramnath Kovind was the first Dalit president. Pratibha Patil was the first woman president. What is the kind of message we need to send now? And I'm not talking about any particular candidate's name.
Yes.
Sorry, Ramnath Kovind is not the first Dalit president. That was K.R. Narayanan, by the way.
All right. So, all right. Professor Juluri.
Yeah, I think the message is simple. The necessity for that message is being driven home day after day, because again, as you just reminded us, Tamanna, this is the precedent. We can keep our anger, righteous rage for the regular politics stuff, but a precedent in a very unique civilizational democracy that wants to be a Vishwaguru, it is connected. We are so connected deeply to the whole world. And we keep saying we want to be a Vishwaguru, but it's turning into a cliche. We need to restore our substance. So whoever it is, I appeal to the BJP, I appeal to all the opposition parties, please think beyond the limitations we've set ourselves in, whether it's, our constitution or our TV talk shows or our social media or our elections. Let's look for peace. Let's look for a person who symbolizes a genuine universal humanism, who doesn't even have to talk, who just exudes the message the whole world needs. Let's get India behind a message the whole world needs.
It might be a tougher fight than just what the next president can do. That's a lot of burden on one person's shoulder. And maybe that's a bigger discussion and debate we need to have. But thank you, Professor Juluri, Saket Gokhale, and Dr. Roy, for joining us on the discussion this evening on Beyond the Headline. We're moving